And now it's Deborah Cobalt Live and the Little Italy Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on Deborah Cobalt Live and our Little Italy podcast. I have such a special guest with us today. Mike Marino is calling us from New Jersey, my hometown in New Jersey. He is an award-winning stand-up comedian, an actor, a writer, a podcaster. His podcast, very popular podcast, Live from My Mother's Basement. He's performed at Carnegie Hall. Also has been in many commercials, including United Airlines, where he was nominated for a Clio. That's really a big deal, Mike. Also, every morning, if you go on his social media, or most mornings, he does something that I find so wonderful, so lovely. It's called My Morning Walk, where you literally take us for a walk in your New Jersey neighborhood. And honestly, half the time it brings me to tears because these neighborhoods, I don't think they make them anymore. Everybody's looking out for everybody, right? You have somebody's grandmother on a little lawn chair looking out for the neighbor. It's beautiful. I miss it very much. It's really just very special. And speaking of specials, you've got a special that you recently did. It's called Back to School. Had me in stitches. And you also have an upcoming performance, I believe, April 4th. We'll talk about that too. So thanks so much for joining us.
Well, hey, thank you so much for having me on the show, and thank you for that luscious introduction. That sounded fantastic. I'm glad you're talking about me.
Yeah. Well, why not, right? You did all those things and then some. So, gosh, Mike, where do we start with a guy like you? You know where we'll start? I mentioned that I'm from your area in New Jersey, right? I went to Union Catholic in Scotch Plains, born in Overlook Hospital. Um, and it's just a really special, delicious place to live and grow up. Talk to us about that and the
Really is.
influence. Yeah, and the influence that it's had on your life and your comedy.
I was actually born in Jersey City, but at a very young age, my family moved here to the suburbs. This is Scotch Plains, Fanwood, New Jersey. And the town really is something like out of Mayberry. It looks like a movie set. Things haven't changed. I hope they never change. I mean, people ask me all the time, I don't lock my doors. We don't lock the house. Nobody robs your house. Your neighbor comes over and borrows your pots and pans. Everybody knows everybody. There's no racism. Everybody's happy. The high school is more into, is the marching band going to win awards? Is the football team going to win this year? Is the wrestling team? There's no crime. There's no fighting. It's just a beautiful town. And I had to come back. And what you're saying about the morning walk, I actually developed the morning walk on social media during the pandemic because we weren't allowed to be around people. And I started in Los Angeles doing it. But when I relocated to come back here and I started walking around the town, believe it or not, I got fans and people calling me thinking, is it real? Is it a movie set? Is it fake?
Wow.
And I'm like, no, this is real. These people are this way. So even this morning when I was walking around the town, people open up their door and they'll wave. They'll offer you, a snack. Did you want to come into the restaurant? And did you want to talk to somebody downtown? Are you an inspiration to anybody? And it's just beautiful. And I am slowly but surely going to develop a TV series that I hope you'll be involved with about growing up in a town where everybody's kind of happy and joyful and nice to you. It's almost like I say this is like watching the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah, and I fully relate to it and understand. And you're right, they don't really make towns like that anymore. And what's really wonderful about your morning walk is you really give us your innermost thoughts about how you feel about just about everything. You've lost your dad, I know, and of course, mom. You bought your parents' house that you grew up in, which I love. I've been following you since you were doing your podcast, and your dad was by your side. Let's talk a
Yeah.
little, right? Let's talk a little bit about that, about your parents, about your family, about that whole influence on you, Mike.
Well, I do come from a traditional hardcore Italian family, whether anybody believes it or not, because there's that rant and rave about whether you call it gravy or sauce. Well, my mother was born with all her brothers and sisters in Italy, and they called it gravy. My mother would say all the time, it's because we put meat in it, and she didn't say sauce. So if that's a lie or something that I made up, well, then dig up my mother and ask her, because she'll tell you, no, that's the truth. And I do have memorabilia from my family. So I know my entire history on why me and my brothers have blonde hair and blue eyes, and why we didn't speak Italian, why we had a dialect, why my mother said she's from Abruzzo, and my father's from Salerno, so they're a little darker, and he had green eyes. But if you actually look into your family's history, you can tell anybody the actual truth, which is usually what is funny. When you make something up, it's not funny. When you tell the truth, everybody goes, "Oh, my family did that." And then you can relate. Now, of course, my father and my mom are no longer around. I wish they were to
Yeah.
see what's going on in the world now. We didn't really know that my genuine comedy was going to come from my mother and father. They did get to see it, but the extent of it now is twice as large. So when people say to me, "You actually own the house you grew up in," well, there was a time where my mother and father fell on hard times and they couldn't make their mortgage. So one of the siblings stepped in and said, "I'll take it and I'll
Wow.
pay for it." I was doing really well in Los Angeles. And I said, "Okay, let me pay for everything. You and mommy live in the house for free. I'll take care of it." Then, of course, when they moved on, I came and lived here myself. And in the last, I don't know how many years it was before my father passed, I was living with him. So it was like the bachelor pad with me and my dad. And I started filming him all the time down in the basement because we grew up in the basement. That's where everything is. That's the
Oh,
man cave. So we called it Live from My Mother's Basement.
yeah. That's where everything happened, right? I mean, if you had a second kitchen, that was normal, right? Because we did. All the good cooking would happen down there. In fact, I've heard you talk about this. Food was just everywhere at all times. Wait, but you say it much better than I would. For people that haven't even come over yet, it's just there in case somebody comes over. I used to say to my family, my kids, because they're half Polish, and they kind of they got to see a lot from what their grandparents were like, my parents. But I said, sometimes people would come over and an eggplant would appear, and I'm like, where did it come from? And it was usually being cooked in the basement, right? Talk to me about your basement.
The basement is furnished just like you said. There's a stove down there. There's a
Yeah.
washer and a dryer next to the stove. My great grandmother's refrigerator is down there from the 1940s. It still works, never has a
Nice.
problem. It's the coldest freezer you'll ever want to put anything in. And there's couches down there and there was TVs down there. And of course, it wasn't the nicest place in the house. It was a little chilly during the winters. But yes, my mother would cook down there all the time because the kitchen upstairs was for the good company. The
Yes.
living room upstairs was for the good company. You don't touch it. You just let it sit so people can come over and see it. And when they come over, we all go downstairs.
Oh, we had a ping pong table in ours too, in our basement. How about you?
Not only did we have a ping pong table, but
Oh,
we weren't using it. You popped it open and it was a dining room table and it
oh,
sat 20 people.
I love that. No, and it probably had cinder block, right? It was made of cinder block.
Yes.
Not your ping pong table, but the walls of the
The wall is cinder
basement.
blocks. The floor is cement. There's a bar downstairs that was built in the 1940s. It was made of oak wood. And it is. I have my great grandfather's cash register from Italy in this house.
Oh, what did he do with that? Did he
When
have
he
a
came
business?
to when he came to Jersey City, he worked as a shoemaker, and I actually have pictures of the cash register sitting on his desk as he was making shoes or repairing shoes back at the time.
Oh, how
And now
beautiful.
I have the cash register.
I mean, this all brings me back, but this is all part of who you are and how you grew up looking at things, right? To me, they were very comical, my parents and all of my relatives, because it was always loud. They would come
Yes.
over and everyone was louder than the next. And as a kid, it actually did bother me because I was thinking, why is everybody always yelling? And then you grow up to realize they're not yelling, they're just conversing, right? And I repeated that with my own kids. They're like, why are you always yelling? I'm like, I'm not yelling. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've become my parents. So, did all of this have an impact on you in terms of
Oh,
building your comedy? Talk to me.
how could you not talk about the way your parents are? My mother used to curse all the time, not in Italian, but in English. And we used to think it was hysterical.
Yeah.
Then she would tell us, but don't you do it. It's only for the adults. And when I first started doing stand up, I was probably around 20, 21. I used to do some jokes in high school and stuff like that. I was always a class clown. But when I first started doing stand-up, all I talked about was the way my mother was. My mother said this, my mother said that, my mother, my mother, my mother. And people would crack up laughing because their family did the same. So in this house, let's say when you were a little kid, dinner every night was at 6 o'clock. You can't be late. If you were late, you're going to get cracked in the head. And my father would sit down to eat. You weren't allowed to touch the food until daddy started eating. If you touched your food, you're going to get a crack in the head.
Ooh.
If the phone in the kitchen rang while my mother was putting food on that table, she would yell at the phone, "Who the hell is calling this house at 6 o'clock while my husband's having dinner with his three boys?" Then we'd be scared because we thought if it was for one of the kids, we're going to get yelled at. My mother would say, "Which one of you boys is getting a phone call from one of your friends at 6 o'clock while your father's having his dinner? That's all I want to know." And she would curse her ass off. Then she answered the phone and go, "Oh, hello. How are you? No, the
It's
boys
such
can't come to the phone. We'll call you." Then she'd hang up the phone and go, "What an asshole."
that was the way. That honestly was the way in so with so many families, particularly may I say Jersey families. You
Oh,
know, it's
yeah.
interesting. I'm listening to your accent. That is something I never really picked up. Most of my cousins have an accent. I never really had, at least I don't think so, a New Jersey accent. It's just sort of like is, right? Even coming
Yes.
out here, people were like, "You're from New Jersey? Where's your accent?" I don't know. I'm the only one in my family who doesn't really have one. Unless I get really pissed off, forget it. Forget about it. But right. So then, all right. So you went to Scotch Plains High.
Yeah. I went to Scotch Plains Fanwood Junior High. I went to the grammar school here, which is called Evergreen. And then I went to the high school. So everything around here was my school. My kindergarten and first and second grade was Jersey City. And I actually had a nun for the first 2 years. And believe it or not, my kindergarten teacher was the same kindergarten teacher my dad had.
No way. That wait a minute. My father, my sixth grade teacher at St. James in Springfield taught my father and my sister, who's much older than I am, and she used to say, "You're nothing like your father or your sister." I was actually a good student, so I took it as a compliment. That is crazy, Mike. That is these nuns stuck around, right?
They did. They did. And they were
Wow.
scary too. And I think that's what the world needs now, nuns teaching class.
I don't disagree necessarily. In fact, you know, just thinking back to everything you're saying to me, getting knocked on the side of the head. Not that I prove that because I don't, and I didn't do any of that. But we've become so soft. I'm not talking me and you. I'm talking society. We were talking about coming down late for dinner. Um, if somebody comes down late and the kid says, "Oh, I had this," now parents will say, "Oh, it's okay. Should I bring dinner to your room? Should I heat it up later?" Should It's always like some kind of excuse. Everybody's getting away with stuff, and we're sort of kowtowing, for lack of a better word, to the younger generation, as opposed to where did the respect go? I guess that's what I'm saying. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how that changed that way. I'm really happy I was brought up in the generation I come from. And then in the 80s when we were all just joyful and having fun. And I'm really happy I grew up in a town like this. I was doing my morning walk this morning, and as soon as you walk by a neighbor, he'll come right over to you and say, "Hello, how are you?" If they're eating something, they're going to offer you something. "Did you want to come over? I'll call you tomorrow." And all the different shops, like the restaurants. You could just walk in and everybody's your friend. Everybody will ask you, "How's your health? What's going on in the world?" I don't know how that changed. I never had that when I was living in Los Angeles, and I hated it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have it here. I've been out here long enough where I've built a community, but it's not that community like that all my family has who are still all back east, right? I go from one cousin's house to the other and they're just all stopping by. There's something beautiful about just popping over, as they say, right, for a cup of coffee. And no, that's not really here. You'll meet them at a cafe, but
Yeah.
it's not right. They won't just pop over for a cup of coffee. It's usually at the local Cafe Lux. Let's face it, that's not the same community, Cafe Lux, as knocking the door at Mike's house for a cup of coffee.
All my friends growing up would walk in the back door. Nobody ever used the front door of this house. The front door was for the good company. But we
Same.
didn't even use the front door. We would walk in the back door, and anybody and anybody at any time could just walk in. It was almost expected. And if my mother was standing there, she'd probably say, clean your feet. But
I
that would
think
be it.
I mean, our moms sound like they were identical. Where was your mom from in Italy? And I know your dad was born in Jersey City.
There's a town in Italy called Duronia. It's in Campobasso. They're known for being Abruzzese. And I actually have my great grandmother's passport when she came over, and she was in her 80s. And a lot of my mother's bloodline is in Toronto, Canada. That's her closest relatives.
Oh,
Of course, everybody else is here. It had something to do with her oldest brother passed away in his early 20s, and his wife and two children had to go to Canada before they came to the United States. And since they were Canadians at that time, they figured might as well just stay. So this weekend, April 4, I'm actually going to go be with the Berardos, which is my mother's maiden name, and the children and the children of, and we're all going to go to a comedy concert, and they get to see their actual cousin perform Italian material about their lineage. It's kind of
yeah.
cool.
It's kind of cool for them, but it's really cool for you, right? It's like a full circle moment, a
It
proud
is.
moment for your family. Am I right?
Is a full circle moment. I wish those aunts and uncles that my mother had were alive when I was in my teens, so I could have known more about the family history. But they all passed away pretty young.
Yeah, yeah. I got a little of that because my family then moved to Florida, right? But I ended up on TV at Channel 13 in New York and then also New Jersey Network. And every time I'd come on, one of my aunts, in particular, Aunt Jean, she's not with us, she'd say, Debbie's on, Debbie's on. So, everybody, it's such a proud moment, right? So now they're all going to collect to watch you, Mike, up on stage. What a proud moment. And don't think they're not going to be thinking of your parents because they will.
Oh, they do. I don't even know what the words for. I mean, it's sad, but
It's love. It's
yeah.
just love. And it continues on for generations. All right, let's talk about you, your work. I also want to make sure we talk about you've had some health situations going on recently that you've been very, very public about. We must talk about that because, first of all, you look great. You've taken weight off, not that you needed to, but you're getting yourself healthier. You look terrific. Let's talk about your career. The first time you got up on stage, was it something where you were like, oh my God, this is it. I'm born to do this. And then, some of the specials that you've been associated with.
Well, ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a performer. So from the age of like 5, 6, all I wanted to do was be on television. And so I would go down the basement and I would impersonate TV commercials to my parents. And they just thought, oh, good, funny little Michael. But when I was like around 13, 14 years old and I was going to school, I knew some kids who were taking the bus from New Jersey to Manhattan to audition for TV commercials, and I really wanted to do it. So I started going to an acting school because the band teacher at the high school knew it's something I really wanted. And I was taking drum lessons from him, and he said to me one day, I go into the city every weekend. If you want, I could hook you up at Herbert Berghoff Studios. You could take an acting class. So after he made it okay with my parents, that's where I first started doing acting at Herbert Berghoff Studios in the Village. And then I started to just see how there was people going on these commercial auditions. And I tried to sneak in on a few. I tried to get an agent. And then it was when I was a senior in high school, I started to see how everybody was doing what they were doing in New York City. So I
Right.
went to this interview with this company. It was called the J. Michael Bloom Agency. It was the biggest commercial agency in New York City. And I got myself an interview because I had blonde hair and blue eyes. I was the all-American boy, but
Yeah.
I sounded like, hey, how you doing? And I didn't know that that was a problem. So I went to this agency and they said, we could never represent you, although you look like an all-American boy. You got that potato chip look, but you sound like a dummy from New Jersey. That's what the lady said to me. And I went home and I was crying. I says, I'm never going to work. I don't know what she means. What the heck is wrong with the way I talk? I thought I was fine. I thought, what's the problem, right? And then I actually went to a speech therapy class and they were telling me how people in New Jersey sound so different because we don't open our mouth when we talk. But I went on this commercial audition for United Airlines because of a couple of my friends who had blonde hair and blue eyes, and they were all 5, 6, and they were all the same look. They were going on the audition. So I crashed it. And I went in there and I did my best and I pretended I was a Marine coming home from boot camp. Well, I
Oh,
booked it and I never knew what was going to happen then. When I booked the job, I had to fly to California for 3 days and 3 nights. I had no idea it was a multi-million-dollar ad campaign for United, which was the first time they ever spent that kind of money on a TV commercial. They
Wow.
shaved my head. I went to go learn what it's like to be a Marine. I made the commercial, and about 3 months later, it went on television.
Wow.
And I was a superstar in seconds. Everywhere I
Wow.
went, people said to me, "Are you Private Zelensky?" And I says, "Yeah, but I'm really not a Marine. I'm an actor." So I ended up going back to the agency. They called me back in. The head of the agency, J. Michael Bloom, comes over to me and he says, "Come in my office. We're going to talk. You're in the number one ad campaign of the year. Did you know that you were nominated for a Clio?" And I says, "No, I don't even know what a Clio is." He goes, "Well, you've been nominated for a Clio. It's the Oscars for TV commercials. You've been
That's right.
nominated for Best Male Performer in a TV Commercial. The awards are going down at Radio City Music Hall. You're up against some pretty big campaigns, and we'll see you there." And then I went and met all the people in the offices because they said, "Now we're going to introduce you to everybody. This is the teenage division. This is the adult division. This is commercials. This is acting. This is this." And I met all these people. And then we went back in the room where the lady said, "I sound like a dummy from New Jersey."
Ah,
And he said, "This is our new client, Michael Marino. We're signing him across the board for the next 2 years. We want to make sure you get him on all these auditions." And she goes, "Why is your head shaved?" And the guy said, "He just did the biggest commercial of the year." She goes, "He looks familiar to me." And I said, "I was here about 4 months ago." And I just looked at her. And he just said to her, and away I went. Later on that day, I had an audition for the movie Full Metal Jacket. That's how fast things start to pick up because you hit a home run.
yeah.
Time went by, we went to Radio City Music Hall, and they called my name as a nominee, Best Male Performer in a TV Commercial, and I lost to Chuck McCann, who won for Dr. Pepper.
Well, if you got to lose to somebody, lose to Dr. Pepper and Chuck. Why not? But
Yes.
boy, tell me that nomination is not everything. I've been nominated for all sorts of stuff recently. Also, sort of the Oscars of journalism. Just last week, the Golden Mike Awards. I sometimes feel like Susan Lucci. I get nominated all the time, but I never quite really bring home the first place prize. But honest to God, I'm so honored to be nominated. Wasn't it an honor to see your name up there and say, "My gosh, I don't know how this happened, but here I am," right?
Well, I got to sit there with the ad campaign and the guy who directed it. His name was Norman Griner. I mean, I can remember it like it was yesterday. And he leaned over to me and said, "You didn't win." And I said, "No, I won."
Wow.
Because I was only 18 years old. I was a senior in high school. You made me famous.
Wow.
Plus, when you work with a company like that at that level, you don't even have to audition for other commercials anymore. They
That's right.
called you, made you an offer. So I ended up making so many TV commercials. It was ridiculous. And then your face changes, you get older, you're not in that category anymore. And that's when I started getting into stand-up.
Wow. That is such a story. And I didn't know that story. I mean, you look on somebody's website or whatever, and you just sort of gloss over it in a sentence. But this is a great story. And it's also a great story of inspiration because people are out there today, even though the whole audition process, it's very different. But people are, they get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. Look what happened to you. Although it did happen quickly. That's amazing.
Well, at that time, you were going on auditions in person. You had to get
Yeah,
on the bus. You had to go to New York. You saw the other people auditioning. There was no such thing as social media. There was no such thing as not in person online auditions. I mean, you couldn't even do this, of course. But I think it was a better time, and you saw the other people. I remember one time I auditioned for this commercial, and they were creating a fictitious family, and it was the first time they had Del Monte foods, and I remember I got picked to play the son, and then who they picked to pay my mother and father and to the children. It was just a unbelievable time. It was a great
yeah.
time.
Is this progress really better? I mean, if you ask somebody now who doesn't know any better, they would say, yeah. But there is a bit of a community, just like what you have in Scotch Plains, that's just missing from the entire industry. And that's why Los Angeles, for example, is struggling because you can do this kind of work from anywhere. You just submit and off you go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, most of the work I do now is all just an offer. I really haven't been on auditions in a long, long time. The last few acting jobs that I've had were all just offers from work that's on the internet, which now it's better. You don't have to audition, but I do miss the process of what we were doing then. So after I kind of fought it, I figured, well, I'm not really earning a big living as an actor, and I'm really not nailing a lot of roles. Maybe I should give it a shot. So I went over to the Comedy Store. And if you remember the story about Mitzi Shore, the lady who owns the world famous Comedy Store,
Oh,
she,
absolutely. She was
yeah,
everything. She was it.
she was it. And she said to me, no, I had my audition and I went on stage. And at that time, I did impersonations. I impersonated Sylvester Stallone and De Niro and Al Pacino, all the Italian actors. And when I got off stage, she said, that was really bad. Why did you do that? And I says, well, because I'm an actor and I could play those roles. And she goes, no, not in my club. I want you to come back in a couple of months and tell me who you are. And I'm like, you see, I don't even want to do this. This is ridiculous. Well, I went back a couple months later and I did the same identical act. I did the impersonations. And when I got off the stage, she said to me, come here, why did you do that? Why did you do that? I told you not to do that. And I says, lady, look, I really don't even want to be a comedian. I don't even like living in Los Angeles. I hate this effing place. It sucks. I can't get a good slice of a pizza. And I'm Italian. And every time I audition for a mob movie, I'm the Irish cop that gets whacked in the first 30 seconds. I hate it here. And she goes, perfect. Perform here whenever you want.
Gosh. See,
Because
you know why?
I did my life. She met
You know
me.
what?
That was the real me.
Just gonna say, the minute you start to look, I did a little comedy. I didn't like the whole atmosphere of comedy. I was not cut out for it, but I actually did really well. And I got called back out here in LA, which was sort of like shocking. Most people never get called back. And the ones who are authentic really do from the heart talk about their lives or what they're
Yeah.
observing, right?
Yeah.
And she is so known for that. She can spot talent. She can spot if you're going to work with the audience. And wow, if you impress her, that is something. So where'd you perform out here?
My home club at that time in the 90s or the early 2000s was the Comedy Store. So I was at the Comedy Store for a long time. And then when you become a headliner, you start touring the nation. You're not in LA too much. And then my second home, which would be my last home, is the Laugh Factory. So I had a pretty big name at the Laugh Factory. I was always on the marquee. Jamie Masada managed me for a little while. And that's how I started getting
Wow.
TV appearances by performing at the Laugh Factory.
Who are some of your favorite comedians and have you met them?
Yeah, because the night that I was doing that audition at the Comedy Store for Mitzi Shore, Andrew Dice Clay was in the room. And I was like, wow, it's Dice, it's Dice, it's Dice. Well, he and I became friends, and he ended up taking me on the road.
Oh, I
He's
love
the one
that.
who gave me the label New Jersey's Bad Boy.
He
He
did. And you
called,
know, go.
he called me the Golden Guido.
I love that. The Golden Guido. That is so fun. And he's from Jersey, right?
I think he's from Brooklyn, New York originally.
All right. We won't hold that against him. But okay. So it's nearby. I love it. What about Pesci and some of those other guys?
I only met Joe Pesci at a golf tournament. There was a golf tournament in Los Angeles at the Braemar Country Club called For Us Eyes Only. It was an all Italian American golf tournament put on by my godfather, believe it or not. So guys like Joe Pesci would come to play, but that was the only time I met him. I did get to perform in front of him, and Joe Mantegna was always part of those festivals as well, and I ended up becoming good friends with Joe Mantegna. They did a big comedy roast for Joe once. I got him good.
Joe is a delightful, kind human being. I know him as
Yes.
well. I've had him on our show. He is just a terrific person. He is very giving as a performer and as a human being. He's really a lovely guy. Any comic that really inspired you throughout, or somebody in the business who really inspired you, and you thought, you know, I could do that too, or I'd like to be like that.
Well, in the beginning, it was Andrew Dice Clay because he did
Yeah.
take me to a lot of different places. And then growing up, I mean, I thought Rodney Dangerfield was really the best
Oh,
when he became an actor and he, his life and his legacy and his facial expressions. I mean, he didn't hit until he was in his 40s, really. Um, and then many others. There was a guy who is no longer with us, but his name was Richard Jenny, and he was from Brooklyn, New York, and he was probably one of the best Italian comedians out there. Dom Irrera. Some of these names are not famous people, but they were famous in the stand-up world.
Right.
They were phenomenal.
Now, you said you lived out here for a while, but Jersey guy who comes out here, believe me, I know how difficult that is, but our careers ended up keeping us here. So here we are. Um, how would you list some of the differences? And there are big differences. In fact, initially when I came out here, I thought, man, this is really cool. I could hear coyotes in the mountains. We don't have coyotes back where I'm from. I guess they do now, right? They're roaming around everywhere. But you know what I mean? It just seems so different. The sunballs. I remember watching the news at night and there were like 7 sunballs. I'm like, oh my gosh, the weather. Like initially, I thought this was just such a cool place. But then over time, you start to realize it's not so easy building that community. Like, and then eventually, right, as you said yourself, you went back. Did you have a hard time living here? Did you make peace with it? Like, what was it like?
Now, in the beginning, when you go to Hollywood, I lived in North Hollywood with, 4 or 5 different people in a small one-bedroom apartment when you're trying to make ends meet, and we all waited tables. And we used to wait tables for companies that would put on special events in somebody's home. So you would look at people that were worth millions of dollars, and you were waiting on them in their home. So that
Yeah,
actually was a little bit depressing because you're looking like, wow, these people really have this type of wealth.
I know.
This is impossible. How could this be? I'm a waiter in somebody's house.
Yeah,
And but then you're meeting all the stars. I mean, not meeting them, you're waiting on them, and you realize, well, maybe there's an opportunity here for me. So you stick it out, you stick it out, you stick it out. But I always was bi-coastal. So after 3 months of being in California, I'd come home for a month. I'd go back for another 3 months. I'd come home for a month. And then in the last, I would say 25 years, I had a great place in North Hollywood. And in the building was somewhat of a community, but everybody was pursuing their career as a talent. So you didn't have a great friend, you had an acquaintance because people in show business, if they can't get anything from you, they're not going to be your friend for very long. And it's sad that that's the hardcore truth. It's bad, but I had such a great traveling life that I didn't have to spend that much time there. I was lucky I could get away. And don't forget, I'm in Los Angeles. I used to call it Hell A. California does have Sacramento and it has Ventura and has the beach areas where people had more sense of a community. It was a little bit different.
yeah. And some of those really, small little towns as you're going up the coast are really quite darling. But I hear you, I get you. In fact, your friends do end up those people who are auditioning and really trying to make it in the business, and you become that ends up your community. But because it's based around business, that can also disappear quite easily as well, which is kind of sad in a way, right?
Yeah, it
So
is.
it takes it a time to figure out the community. But still, when I go back to Jersey and also Florida, my family moved to Florida when I was a teenager. That's home to me as well. It's just very different than out here. So I get why you decided to move back. Talk to me a little bit about what it was like when you stepped foot on the stage at Carnegie Hall.
Oh, well, I've been really, really blessed and lucky to step on some of the biggest stages on the planet, not even realizing what I achieved.
Yeah, I
Which
know.
is one of the bad things about the way that I am. I should have just, or should just start to realize, wait a minute, I don't have to make it. I already did. I just
Yeah.
need to enjoy what I'm doing. Otherwise, it's no fun and you'll lose your joy. I got on the stage at Carnegie Hall as the opening act for Bob Anderson, who does a Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett review. I never thought I'd be playing Carnegie Hall. It came out of nowhere. I was entertaining at a private party in California maybe 4 years ago, I would say. And some lady who produces big shows was in the room. And she said, "You're a phenomenon. I think you should open for Bob Anderson at Carnegie Hall at a Christmas special." And I'm like, are you kidding? and it's the greatest night of your life. You can't believe you're there. It's sold out. Everybody and anybody sitting in the room. And
Yeah.
he's looking at me like you're perfect to work with me all the time. She's looking at me like I could take you on the road. You can go by yourself. And the whole night was just the greatest night. Mind you, I don't know how long I had been with my fiance at the time, but she came with me. Now, she's getting to see me perform at Carnegie Hall. We're all dressed up.
Wow.
Everybody's in a tuxedo. And we're all going to go out to dinner and everybody's going to be, the Rat Pack. This is the closest you're going to get to the Rat Pack.
Yeah.
And when the show was over, he said, "Hey, we're all going across the street to the Carnegie Club and everybody and anybody's going to be there." So I says, "All right, I'll see everybody over there." And we go walking outside. It's freezing cold. My room is down the block at a gorgeous hotel. I mean, it just is like a dream. It's a
Yeah.
dream. So we're all bundled up. We're walking down the street. There's a line to get in the Carnegie Club. The doorman is saying, "You can't come in. It's sold out." And I says, "Well, I was told that if I came here, I could get right in. I'm even friends with the lead singer in this show. His name is Steve Maglio, and he's singing right now. They're all expecting us. We just left Carnegie Hall." And the guy said, "I'm sorry, I can't let you in. It's too crowded." Right at that moment, just like in the movie Goodfellas, some guy tapped him on the shoulder and said, excuse me, that's Mike Marino. Come on in, Mike. Come on in." And I grabbed my fiance. We walked right through the crowd, front row, two glasses of wine, cheese, charcuterie, and we're sitting there. And then the singer says, "Hey, he just finished Carnegie Hall. Mike Marino's here."
Ooh. Ooh.
And you can't even believe it. You can't believe it. Then I had people calling me saying, "Hey, we saw you at Carnegie Hall. It was so surreal." I'm like, "Look at Mike Marino. He's playing Carnegie Hall. He did it. He did it." And then you think somebody a long time ago said, "You're never going to work. You sound like a dummy from New Jersey." And now I let the people know that I sound like a dummy from New Jersey. How you doing?
Oh, I love you, Mike. You just have such a great attitude about everything. You've taken the hits and you always come back a winner. You really do. And congratulations on your impending wedding to Heather. She's lovely and beautiful, and I could see that she really takes care of you, which
She
leads
does.
me to you had some health issues. You were performing on a cruise ship not
Yeah.
long ago. And I don't know, for whatever reason, your feed wasn't popping up on mine. And then all of a sudden it popped up and you were in a hospital. I thought, oh my God, what happened to him? Can you tell our audience briefly, because we're actually going to be running out of time, tell everybody what
Well,
happened?
we'll just touch
Um,
on it real quick because we want these stories to be happy and joyful. I had a seizure on a cruise ship. Uh, we really don't know exactly how it happened, but after about a month of trials and tribulations, I went to an emergency room. I had some surgery done on my brain, and they took out a mass. And supposedly, and I'm hoping that I'm 100% and I'm ready to rock and ready to get back in the game. Uh, I've had some near-death experiences in my life. This is probably my second. It's actually my second, but I made it. And the
yeah,
funniest thing is because of social media, it just buzzed all over the internet somehow. Some people actually posted that I passed away, but I didn't. Hi, everybody. I'm alive. I'm 100%. And now I can tell you it's going to change my stand-up routines.
of
They're going to be
course.
little bit different. There will be the stuff about getting older, your health, and of course, falling in love this intensely at my age with Heather, who is a miracle. She actually
Yeah.
saved my life.
Yeah. And she's a nurse, right? By profession.
Yes.
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 So you got lucky there too, right? She
Oh
really
my
knows how
God.
to
I'm the
take care of you.
luckiest guy alive.
But I have to tell you, you look good. You look healthy. You look like you're
Thank
ready
you.
for the next experience, which I know is what, April 4th. You're performing up there.
Yeah.
That's terrific. I mean, I can only imagine how this changes a person for your next, routine that you're going to be doing, which I'm sure you're working on. But in the meantime, this latest one, what's it called? Live from. I suddenly forgot the name of it.
Back to school.
Back to school. Tell us about that a little bit.
Back to School was created by a man named Dan Cutulu, who has 7 Emmy Awards for his producing and directing. And he was inducted into the Scotch Plains Fanwood High School Hall of Fame the same night I was. Now, he and I have never met. I didn't even know who he was. So when I went there, he's 10 years younger than me. And he said, "Do you know who I am? Do you know what I do?" And I said, "No, I'm not familiar." And he told me about some of the people he produced, including Sebastian Maniscalco. And I know Sebastian, the two of us toured with Andrew Dice Clay back in the day. And I said, "Well, that's wonderful." And he goes, "Well, why don't we shoot you?" And I says, "Okay, I got a big connection at the Count Basie in Red Bank. Why don't we go down there? We'll do a Count Basie show." And he said, "What do you say we shoot it at the high school?" And I said, "I don't
Oh,
they haven't finished or did anything to the auditorium in the high school in many, many years." And he goes, "I got the best crew. We'll put together a really big budget. I'll get 10 cameras. We'll throw them all over the high school. And if we do this right, we'll get the marching band to be your opening act. We could do the whole thing about what it's like to go back home to Scotch Plains." And I'm like, this is just a dream come true because this is what I
oh,
do. And I think well, I know we're going to spin this off into a TV series that I wrote called Reconstructing Jersey, about the life and times of me here in this town with the town people, only now back after all these years. And it should spin off from the actual back to school show. I mean, the marching band and I went down the streets. Maybe you know that the original song, The Horse, was recorded by the marching band in 1978. We're using it as the backdrop as the credits roll. The Horse was a famous song that made you want the football team to win when the marching band played it. And so they did it, and now we did it. And when I walked out on stage, and the first thing I said was, "It's nice to be back," where I started.
that is beautiful. And that whole full circle moment is even more meaningful than ever, right? To you, probably
Yes.
because of what you've just gone through, your health
Yeah.
scare.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Here we
that's
go. It's going to be big, and it's coming out on Amazon probably in May.
probably in May. You'll have to let us know because you should do a big party for everybody. You should do something in Scotch Plains. Maybe I'll come out for it. I mean, that'd be great.
We probably will because they are going to have now the high school alumni and backed by popular demand, more people who are inducted into the High School Hall of Fame. So if that happens at the same time this gets released, we could do it all in one night, maybe even play it or air it at the high school for people to watch. I mean, we really did the right thing because there was a charge to get in to watch the show. And we only filmed one show. Normally you film two in case there's a
Right.
problem. So the proceeds the people paid at the door went to the high school, went to the drama club
Yeah.
and the marching band. So we did the right thing by everybody.
Yeah. You mentioned Sebastian Maniscalco. I think he's hilarious. He's a real physical comic, right? I
Yes.
mean, some of his physical comedy to me, just that whole situation makes me laugh. And he's a guy who lives out here now, and I follow his social media as well. And in fact, I'd love to interview him on our show. And I often think, gosh, I wonder how you like it out here meeting Sebastian. I believe he's from Chicago, right? And I
Chicago,
think,
yeah.
yeah, and I think to myself, I wonder how he likes it because coming out here, as we discussed, right? It's like, oh, it's fun, it's Hollywood, and then all of a sudden, there's your reality. You're living behind a gate, you're living behind something. You got to stay safe. And I often wonder, how's he enjoying his ride to fame, actually, with what he's doing? But he's performing, I believe, in Washington D.C. You should come to that at the NIAF Foundation. It's the National Italian American Foundation in D.C. They ought to get you to host that next year. You'd
Maybe
be
they will.
terrific.
Hey, Nayaf, give me a call.
No, I'm thinking of you for them. They're terrific and they're great people too. Any parting words, please, that you'd like to give us before we let you go? Where people can find you, how they can find you? Something I didn't ask you because we got to
Yeah,
have you
well,
back. We're going to have you back because this was
one of
too
the
short.
funniest things I always remember somebody saying to me, "How can I follow you?" I go, "Why would you follow me? You don't follow me. I'll follow you. Get away from me." But all my social media is Mike Marino Live on Instagram, LinkedIn. My website is mikemarino.net. My YouTube channel is Mike Marino Live. My show, Live from My Mother's Basement, has about 300 episodes that you can watch. We're going to start filming again in a couple of weeks, so I'll have you come down the basement and be on my show.
I would love it. I would love it. I'd be so happy in that basement because it'll bring me back. It'll really bring me back. I'll look at the stove. I'll look at all of it. The little washer dryer right next to the stove and probably a sink in between, I'm guessing. Um,
Yes.
Am I right? I mean, I'm telling you, we grew up very similarly. So I really appreciate you, Mike. And I really hope that you'll come back too, with all your
Sure.
success and upcoming success, because you'll have a lot more to talk about, especially with this new special that you're going to be working on, even after back to school. You've got a lot to work for, a lot to look forward to, and a wedding hopefully soon.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Give my love to Heather and
I will.
anything else. And you were really a sport. You were really terrific. I'm so glad we got you on. I'm honored to have you on. I
Thank
really
you.
am. So, everybody, you can hear my interview with Mike Marino on my YouTube, and we'll give it to you too. You can put it on your YouTube channel on
I will.
Deborah Cobalt Live, also the Little Italy podcast. And you can also find us. We'll post it on Facebook and then some promos on Instagram. But if you're into only the audio podcasts, and just look us up on iHeartRadio or one of their top podcasts, and Amazon, I don't know, Spotify, wherever you get your audio podcast, you'll find us as well. And look for clips that we're going to be posting about my interview with Mike on Instagram in weeks to come. So everybody, I'm really honored that you all joined us. And Mike, you're the best. You're looking good. And we'll stay in touch, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye-bye.